Yeah, well, no, they one thing, they did the other. Right, right. And also because of, I guess they can name their company.
Design Review Board meeting?
It's 6 o'clock. All right. 5 o'clock, I mean. Boy, it's 6 o'clock. That's Eastern time. Yeah. Okay, you have the minutes? Okay, first on the agenda is going to be approval of the minutes.
I have one comment or question, I guess. Under items to be heard, I believe we had a few folks who had to recuse themselves. Should those be noted in the
Yes,
minutes?
they should.
It's in there. It's at the beginning of each item.
Have to be-
Second paragraph.
Oh, okay, okay, say at the top. Okay, yep, understood. All right.
I always put them in first.
Okay, good, thank you.
Motion.
I move the approval of the minutes as presented.
Okay, we have a
Second?
motion to approve. Got a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Mack.
By way of announcements, Tim Brown, who would normally be here presenting these cases, is off in Arizona somewhere. I think we let him go, actually.
You ran him off.
No, he'll be back. Our first item tonight is the Good News Methodist Church roof deviation. They're requesting a deviation in roof pitch to accommodate the specific structure that they're proposing. Normally we would require a 4 to 12 roof pitch. In this particular case, they're requesting a deviation to allow a 2.5 to 12 single slope roof over the majority of the structure that they're proposing. Their justification is listed on page 1 of 2 of the staff report. I think we probably have applicant here to further discuss their request.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Jeff Margaretin, architect.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
I'm John Nash with O'Connell and Associates. I'm an engineer.
Okay.
Jeff will be answering most of your questions on this.
So on your roof pitch, you want to change to a deviation from to allow for 2.5 by 12 single slope,
That's correct.
and the typical is 4 by 12. Is there design?
The front element has a 6 and 12 roof pitch at the entrance structure, but the majority of the structure down the long, narrow main chassis, if you will, of the building is 2.5 and 12 pitched roof. We had a number of reasons for not going with the 4 and 12 roof pitch, a lot of which had to do with getting mechanical space up in the second floor in the truss space and putting that off to one side of the building so we could have a higher sloped roof in the classrooms. So the classrooms go down one line of the building, and then the other side of the building has mechanical space, duct space, attic space. Putting a 4 and 12 roof on that single slope, it would just be absurdly too tall, unnecessary. And if we did a hip roof and put it in the middle, then we would have ended up with the main part of the usable attic space down the middle of the structure, and we wanted it off to the side. We wouldn't be able to get that higher ceiling in the classroom. So we had better acoustics with a sloped ceiling in there. So the lower slope, we felt, also gave a little bit more of a modern touch to the building, and then we still have the 6 and 12 gable piece up front in that darker, in that red color. Little schoolhouse kind of a feel.
Okay, any questions? Lourdes?
I think aesthetically, I like it. I
Thank
think it looks good. And I think it wouldn't deter 98 standards. I think it's got an architectural merit.
Thank you.
That's my opinion.
Okay. Well, I don't see anything, any problem with it. It's still the same, it's just a little lower.
Yeah. I think proportionally, it works better. We looked at a number of different slopes. We looked at it through the section of the building in order to give us the space we needed up in the attic for the mechanical equipment while still trying to keep a lower profile. And it's kind of a little geometric game. And we landed here and we really liked the appearance, so thank you.
Well, it's the contrast between the 6 and 12 and the 2.5 and 12 is sort of nice.
Yeah.
And if you would have done a 4 and 12 with a single slope, it would have been really high, and it wouldn't have been proportionally been awkward and competing with the tower.
Well, exactly, and I think that had come up, that you end up with a 4 and 12 and a 6 and 12, and the two slopes are too similar. So visually, from the road, you could say, well, wait, did they mess that up? There's not as much of a contrast. So we felt that this was the best solution to the project.
Okay.
I have a question
Sure.
for Madam Attorney, I think. I agree with Lourdes. I think it's an attractive composition. What I don't think is appropriate is us justifying approval of it based on what are really self-imposed challenges. And so my question is, if we're inclined to approve it, do we need to state a reason why we're approving the deviation?
I believe, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but this board, it's not quite like the zoning board of adjustment. I don't think we have to prove a hardship. So as long as it's based on the aesthetics and this board agreeing that the aesthetics are better,
Okay.
that's a sufficient
Yeah,
justification.
I mean,
for
if there were a
deviation.
different building before us and someone said exactly what this gentleman has said, I may say, you know what, it doesn't look good, so we're not approving it anyway. So I just want to be careful that somehow we don't
Right.
create.
But in this case,
Right.
In this case, you did a great job.
You guys have a little bit more discretion than some of the other boards as far as aesthetics are concerned. So I think in this case it'd be appropriate. Matt, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, in this case, or for this board's purposes, when you're looking at development design, it clearly is self-created.
Yeah.
Whereas if we're at the ZBA, you can't benefit from a self-created hardship.
Yep. Okay.
In this case, do you like it?
Yes.
That's. I want to clarify.
Will it
You
be
need
consistent
to
with
approve
the
it.
provisions that relate to the corridor?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will agree with Lourdes and state that this particular composition, I think that the little tower element at the front is what really makes it. If the building lacked that, I would have a very different opinion
Right,
about it.
yeah,
So-
me too.
Okay.
I think that composition between the tall, the vertical, and the horizontal makes it.
All right, in that
Thank you.
case, do you have a,
I have a motion to approve.
you wanna make
Second.
a motion, a second, all in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion carries.
thank you.
Yes, and item number 2 is the Good News United Methodist Church expansion. This is the project requesting development design and site plan approval.
Okay.
And these gentlemen can
Come
present
on
their
back
project.
up. Yeah.
If you have any questions, we're still available.
Go ahead and state your name again.
John Nash,
Okay.
an engineer for the project with O'Connell and Associates.
Thank you. Okay.
So you guys approved building color deviation last night?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw that and I was like, that can't be an approved color.
Bless you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, this is just a little scrambled up for me. Have you seen it?
Actually, what I'm looking for. Project description.
I don't see one in here.
Are you asking about the landscape plan?
So
Yeah,
landscape
there's an
plan?
existing landscape plan?
There's an
Yeah.
existing landscape plan. We've gone through this process with the planners, and
There it is.
as part of our deviation last month, we were discussing the landscape buffer up front, and we were arguing not arguing, but discussing with the planners that the existing landscaping that was done back in 2006 meets the code, and more or less it's set for the front buffer that we got a deviation for last month. So while the scenic corridor requires we provide a landscape plan, there is no proposed landscaping on the project, so we provided an existing landscape plan. And it,
Okay.
How are you gonna deal with the construction, you know, the construction is gonna
the,
involve a lot of landscape, damaging landscape.
well, the building, the proposed building is more or less 3,000 square foot building that's adjacent to the existing structure. And it is doing, in terms of actually removing any landscaping, it's actually not doing that. It's adjacent to it. The landscaping's in front of the existing structure and up closer to the parking lot. This is set back adjacent to the building. There is, I believe, one small tree that's being removed for the to build the structure, and that is essentially it.
Where's the staging gonna go
The what?
for the staging?
The staging is shown on the construction plan, but it's right up in front of the building. It's on the site plan.
Where the parking lot's gonna be for the time being?
Well, the parking lot is staying where it's at, and we're not adding any additional spaces. All we're doing with this project is moving the classrooms into an adjacent building, so in order to get them out of the main sanctuary. So the staging is off of the parking lot between the building and the existing parking lot.
Yeah. Where is the, how is the retention on this property?
There's a retention pond on the rear of the property that was constructed or expanded in 2006, and we've got a stormwater calculations that show that detention pond is adequate
Okay.
for this project. But the storm for the new building is piped into that pond.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So,
there's no landscape.
just so I understand, the water management area for the property does not require the area east of the sanctuary?
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at. There's the retention pond is a very wide,
Large
narrow.
area there.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Yeah,
There's a low spot on the eastern border, or are you talking about on the south?
Eastern, the whole eastern side over there.
Right, that's not the retention pond, that's just a
That is
low
not-
area.
okay.
The retention pond is the entire
Tom,
southern
that's what I
border.
was asking. This looks like,
That's right.
grading wise, looks like a
Right.
large
This-
retention
this
pond,
is it.
but I
This
think
is
what
the
this gentleman's
retention
indicating
pond.
is which one's
The
probably.
low area you're talking about is from when, in 2006, when they graded the site. That was sort of a low area that was a result of the project at that time.
Okay.
So
So it's-
We're grading some portion of that, but all the storm goes to the southern property line.
And they're gonna plumb
That's correct.
the downspouts all back to that pond, I guess.
Okay.
That's right.
That
And there's some trench drains in there between the two buildings and all drains to the rear.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Okay. All right, now I understand.
Okay.
All right, let's see.
I'm, if you're,
Go ahead.
okay.
Go, shoot.
I don't know, do you wanna ask the question about the public? Or do you wanna-
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Anybody here
Bob.
from the public would like to speak regarding this? No.
Okay. I move the approval of the Good News United Methodist Church expansion as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I'll never do this again.
Item number 3, the Fayard Mini Storage. This is a project that you requested to come back to look at the brick and the color scheme.
Okay.
Which color is it?
Okay, anybody here from the company, a representative?
Good evening. My name's Dan Hardy with Odin Hardy Construction. I'm here to answer any questions you got. I know last time they approved the brick change, but they wanted to see the wall color change. So you should have before you renderings and samples of the colors. Sure.
Yeah, I would love to have the brick too.
Yes, please. Could you,
Here's these as well.
Three choices. That's these colors right here.
I think all
are all
of them
four
are
of them
good.
gonna go in the building?
Actually, part of one of those is the trim, and then the other 3 are base colors. That's correct.
So all 4 are going.
Yeah, on sheet A 4.1 down at the bottom, there's an explanation of the.
Okay.
Correct. There was some concern about 3 colors on the base and 1 for the trim. And from what I understand, there was a comment that they really wanted to limit it to 2 colors on the base and 1 on the trim. So I brought all 4 colors that were on the original, and those paint samples matched the colors.
Last month, y'all requested 2 wall colors, 1 trim color, and paint chips, and a color rendering.
Right.
So, and you also told us to keep the brick so that y'all could compare it with brick.
Yep.
So we did. So.
So is the sheet A 4.1, I mean, I know that different printers print things differently. This is the updated color scheme?
I would say yes, but.
Not quite so pink, yeah.
Yeah. The samples that you have in front of you.
That's the actual stuff,
The chips,
okay.
those are the actual
Stuff, yeah.
So,
colors.
all right, so here, Dave.
Okay.
Let's figure out, okay, this is,
So the whitest color is the trim.
lightest color is the trim, which is
That's that one.
The moderate white?
Correct.
this one goes where? Here?
Yeah. I think these all 4 they're the 4 samples.
So this is the trim, that's the lightest is the trim. What is the 2 and 3? These
So
2.
where does the dapper tan go? 6-1?
The owner really wants 3 base colors, which is, as you can see on that rendering, that's what his building is now, and there was a picture that was here of his existing facility. I think the comment was they really wanted only 2 base colors. So the trim stayed the same, but they combined number 2 and number 3 and just made it the same color. His concern was that since all the elements move, and then on the facade, that he really wanted to have 3. He'll settle for the 2, but that was his original request.
But I don't know where this color goes.
I think it's where 3 is.
The 3,
Originally, it was color number 3.
okay, I see that.
This is
So, all right, so here's trim.
And instead of 3, you would use 2.
That's correct. And I brought you paint, I don't want to confuse you, but I brought you the physical paint color and also brought you the physical ephes color, because there's a little bit of variation every time you mix a Sherwin-Williams color. So you'll see a little bit of difference when you lay that on there, but it's a mix based on that Sherwin-Williams paint color.
This dark is going where?
That is, let's see.
That.
I believe that is EPIS 3. I think that color is the owner's preference, but the way the rendering is labeled,
That's correct.
EPIS 2 and 3 are both macadamia.
That's correct.
So these panels would actually match this.
Yeah. So what happens is as the building undulates, it'll be the same color. Before he had the undulation a different color to make it pop, if you will.
Stand out.
David,
Yes.
you know, I would use the darker color with the contrast of the softer tan instead of macadamia,
Okay?
and use those with the tan. What do you think?
All right, so you're saying
You know,
this one?
I mean, my own sensibility is that the softer tan, which is the inset
Right.
arch panels being different than the wall adjacent.
And I just want to create more contrast by,
Okay.
instead of using the macadamia, use the dark color that he liked on the original, and then that way it'll have more.
Right.
I mean, what do you think? Is it,
I like
Yeah.
that idea.
I was going
because
to say,
that way,
I'm
So,
it does it, I don't know, it just gives it a little punch with a brick.
and it helps the brick stick out a little bit.
Because the other one becomes very muddy. The
Macadamia.
colors are, yeah, the macadamia and the softer tan are
Yeah.
just, they're so close that,
They-
you know, with
they-
the sun and, you know, the sun does a lot of things to the colors. And they might even start looking like they're the same color
Okay.
certain times of the day.
yeah.
So take that one out.
I guess I don't disagree with that. My concern is that the different colors are used for different elements, kind of with not a lot of rhyme or reason. In other words, the color of the inset panels is the same color being used on the top third of the tower elements.
Right.
Well, portions of the tower elements.
Sort of, yeah.
And that's, in other words, a little bit more rigor in either that's the color for the panels and not the color for the walls.
Well,
It's
the
the-
way I see it, I mean, my perspective is the panels are on one, just a section of the building. And then the towers are like another different element. And in the different elements, they're used as, the color is used as,
Differently, yeah.
Differently.
And in other words,
And-
this panel being the same color as this portion of the building, that doesn't.
it's
Really?
like, to me, it's like as long as there's a certain contrast,
Yeah.
unless you're thinking about using, let's say, doing the grid, which is a dark color, and the same as a lighter color as a panel,
Yeah.
and then do the contrast on the top.
Well,
Is
that's
that
where I
what
was
you're
headed
thinking?
is that in other words, I guess everyone on the board could see this. This portion of the building being the same color as the body of the building right here would be a much more handsome composition in my opinion.
And
I feel
and
like.
then the grid would be the lighter color, which is the inset.
I don't have a real strong opinion about what that is, because there's nothing else like that on the building. So, in other words, it's
But
that
it's-
way here, it's that way there, it's that way there. I can.
Right, I mean, it would be similar to this and this.
Yeah.
So,
And the clock tower. And that's this?
And I don't say this to be condescending, but it's almost like, you know, little guy's picking up crayons, and it just happened to be whichever color crayon got in his hand is what color that piece of the building was.
Yeah.
yeah, I actually, they're just taking the parts of the buildings and separating them and starting, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some,
doing,
it's,
you know.
it's got a generally kind of classical architecture feel, and classical architecture, you don't just sort of throw this color there and this color there. There's a rigor to it, that there's a base, a middle, and a top,
Top.
and there's the, you know, making your mind up as to which color which piece is, and then use it consistently throughout the building, I think is, that would be my suggestion. So that, I think it's a relatively minor change I'm suggesting, and that is that the panel above the grids and the adjacent pilaster all be EIFS color 2.
Be number 2.
Yeah. Now, if you wanted to change number 2 to number
To be the darker color.
to the dapper, I'm okay with that, but
Dapper.
just make the same change that I just described, and it'll be.
And if we do that, I think that the top and this inset should be the same color.
I can agree with
I
that.
think that would, you know,
This reads as the body of the.
yeah,
Yeah.
Which is the darker color?
the dapper.
The dapper, okay. Yeah, it looks,
There's a lot going on this very, very large building, and
I thought we had this resolved at one time, but I guess we didn't.
Well, we did, and
So they changed the brick.
then brought the
Change
brick,
the brick.
Then he brought
which is the
brick in.
original brick that he wanted.
oh, the brick, and we're good with the brick. This brick is a
Oh,
much
the
more
brick is
handsome
great.
brick. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so
Now-
too.
Now the brick's
We like the
good,
brick.
now
Well,
we're
we-
going back for new colors. All
I'm
right.
laughing because originally all the colors got approved and the brick got denied, that brick that you have in your hand.
Yeah.
So
And
then we
now
got the
we-
colors, now we wanted the
Wasn't
brick back.
pretty
And now we're down to 4 colors, so you know, this is wonderful.
Yeah.
So I think we go down to 3 colors and the
Okay.
brick. And then what we're saying is EIFS 2 would be dapper. And the tops where it says EIFS 1 would be dapper as well, too.
Okay, so this.
If somebody could mark one of those up.
She's
Yeah.
gonna do it for you.
Don't worry, we're gonna get
I
it
was just
clear.
like, Mac, are you
Yeah.
getting this? You follow this?
Lourdes is real good at this, so it's.
Don't worry, we're gonna get it clear.
She wants to make a motion.
Yeah,
You can give us a map once you
Okay.
decide it.
she's got it, we're following her, but she's got it down.
Okay, this is
So
EIFS.
this one changed to, dapper tan.
Number 3. This is number
So which color did we get rid of?
macadamia
Which was EIFS
2.
2?
Yeah.
Save.
And we're going to softer tan. Okay. So this will be 2, 2. This will be 1. All right, I got it.
Lourdes, is that?
This will be 2. All right.
So it's this one mark.
So it'll be these colors. Right here. These 3. That's the 3 colors. That looks good. Well, I don't know how you throw 4 of them in a mix.
Why would you order art supplies from the school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably did.
Okay.
Crayons, huh?
You don't have to worry about
Is
it.
this right?
I think so.
Maybe a couple extra pencils.
Oh, they're outside.
So this is
I'll take
3,
a hammer.
3, 1, 3. This would be
And
3.
3 is the dapper tan?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I marked it up. I was
3
using 2 as
is
dapper tan.
dapper
Okay, yeah.
tan,
Yeah, okay.
okay,
And this one stays what it is?
whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah. So that's,
That stays,
we
and
wrote
this
that,
is,
dapper tan, dapper tan, dapper tan, dapper tan,
Dapper tan,
dapper tan, dapper tan.
it's just gonna have a lot more contrast.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's it.
Okay,
It's probably the same as this. Yeah.
Call that one out.
Yeah, it's, oh, it says two.
You don't want it dark.
Is it one?
Mm-hmm. Which one is that?
No, that's a good point.
Okay,
And-
how do,
well, I think if you could, Lourdes, kind of turn the sheet around and give us an explanation of the colors, and then we'll just attach that as an exhibit.
Okay.
But I think we should give you an explanation of what it is that we're,
That's fine. And if I can get a copy of it also,
absolutely.
Yes.
that way I'll make sure we get the right color up.
David,
yes,
this one here is number one?
I thought that was dapper tan.
Okay.
Matches.
Dapper tan sounds kind of like a.
Dapper Dan.
You
Yeah,
know
right.
Tan, Dapper Dan.
the Dapper Dan,
That's
the
his twin
movie?
brother.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. In the tower here, it would be number 3, and number 3 is the Dapper Tan. And then this top, again, the grid and the top would be number 3. The trim is gonna be the same color that you have, the white.
The white,
Now, the panels are gonna be the same that you call out, which is the number 1, which is the softer tan.
okay?
Okay, and then you go to, the inset and on the first floor is gonna be number 1,
Softer tan.
the softer tan. And then like we discussed, this grid and the top would be the number 3.
So the dapper tan sounds like it's the predominant
It's gonna
tower
be-
element.
Yeah, it's gonna create a lot of contrast there.
Okay,
And it'll also create contrast with the trim as well.
okay.
And it'll even look good with a brick.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, because the brick has got multicolored.
Okay, so is that the motion?
Lourdes, if you want to pass your sheet around, just to make sure that all the, and we could just say that you're, I guess, moving that the colors reflects the sketch
Okay.
that's been marked up by Lourdes.
So you're making a motion to approve with the following conditions. Number 1, eliminate EFS number 2 macadamia, correct?
Okay, yes.
And number 2,
Yep, I looked over her shoulder, that sounded
the
good.
layout of colors as
As shown in the
exhibited-
sketch.
As in, exhibit A sketch.
Sure.
Did you guys all have a chance to look at this?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm gonna give it to Carrie now.
Yeah, she made it easy to understand.
Could we
Color,
get a second?
color by the numbers. Have we got a motion yet?
Yeah, David, did you see this?
She's finishing up.
This is Lourdes's.
Oh, yeah, I looked over her shoulder while she was marking it up, yep.
Okay.
So second, if we needed a second.
You second it?
Dave, okay, motion, second, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And sir, we'll get you a copy of that, so you'll have
And
it.
here, the
It'll be
samples.
part of the order.
And here's the brick.
It will also be attached to the final order.
Oh, my God.
Um,
Okay, next on the list, yellow board.
Next one is the Yolo Board Distribution Center. It's a 11,000 square foot warehouse on the corner of Veterans Road and Highway 98. There are a few deficiencies. The lot is one lot of record with the adjacent along 98. Therefore, we would need the 20-foot landscape buffer along 98, the scenic corridor buffer. We require a 3 vertical elevation change on the side that faces the scenic corridor. We could only identify two. We have a roof pitch that's less than the minimum required in the code, and we did not receive specification for wood stain, so we couldn't verify if it's to our standard.
Okay. All right. Will the applicant or somebody representing the applicant come forward?
Good evening. My name is Darrell Burgess. I'm with Emerald Coast Associates, and this is Mr. Martin Ecken. While we are the registered agents for the project, I am going to defer to Mr. Margaretin in terms of the architecture. It's not really our function, so please.
And I will address, I guess, the comments 2, 3, and 4. I will let you talk in regards to the buffer issue. Okay. Right. But as far as comments 2, 3, and 4, I believe number 2 was the 2 pitch change in the 2 changes in the elevation. Looking at it, I believe there are 3.
3.
So I don't think that's a non-issue. The second one was the roof slope, and the design code specifically states that parapets are not part of the. I'm not going to specifically is not necessarily verbatim. My apologies, but parapets are different than actual roof slopes. We have a parapet in front of this building. We've created 3 different elevation changes in the roof, and then one side has I think it's a 1.5 and 12. I think that's 1.5 and 12 on one of the pitches of the parapet, but the parapets are fully within the code and the design code, so that's a non-issue as well. And then the third is the wood siding. So this is an interesting question. It says in the code that wood siding is an approved material. Says it right there, wood siding. But interestingly enough, it also calls everything to be in terms of the Munsell color selection. But wood is not in a Munsell color book, it's wood. So we're looking to use a stained wood, where we might use a pallet wood, a reclaimed pallet wood, thinking something a little more natural to go with, a little bit of what YOLO board is about. And we're using that as a highlight piece in the architecture. So I'm all up for suggestions on how to classify a nice walnut or an oak stain in terms of Munsell, if it's a required thing to do. But wood is wood, and we're looking for a wood.
We're looking for you're applying a coating to it.
We're going to stain it.
You're changing it from the natural wood color.
Well, we're probably going to enhance whatever that natural wood is.
That's what they're interested in.
Yeah.
What color is that going to be, and is it within the Munsell color chart? If not,
well, Munsell
it requires a deviation.
Right. So as far as a deviation, then Munsell colors, as far as and you guys know more about Munsell than I do. There aren't wood stains. So yes, we're looking for a deviation to the Munsell color chart to allow for a wood stain, a natural wood stain on a wood siding product?
Well, first, you need to have a sample of what you want to present, Jeff. So we would have to see something like that anyway, before we could do a deviation.
Okay.
And
Okay.
we may actually have to advertise that you're requesting a deviation.
Right.
Before the board could approve it.
Okay.
So those are both you're going to have to come back for.
So, well, for the one. The others, I think, are handled.
Well, for
We
the,
haven't got to the,
we
Oh, I don't know about
Planning
the
issue
I don't know about the buffer issue. But as I do that, and I wrote the dark walnut, but I guess we need to bring in a stain sample? Okay. Is there something in the code where it says wood siding specifically in the code, but yet it doesn't specifically say a particular wood siding? So is there a wood siding that was expected when wood siding was stated in the code?
I think the challenge is that you could make the same statement about stucco or metal and say, well, the code says that stucco or metal is approved, so why do we have to submit a color? Well,
Right.
because stain is color. So if you were proposing to put a pink stain
Hot
or
pink, right, I get it.
something like that on it, you can open up the book, the Munsell color book, and you can come to some conclusion as to what color the stain you're putting on the building is, and if it's within the scope of what's the newly expanded list. I believe that's in effect now, isn't it? The new.
Yes,
Yep.
but his project predates it, so I don't know if we
Oh.
can handle that,
And we could.
but you guys can take it
Okay,
into
yeah.
consideration.
Okay. So really, I mean, I think what you may, I don't think we're asking you that you change anything necessarily, but if you can correlate the stain with a color in the Munsell color book, and I don't know if you know this history, the reason the Munsell color book is what's used is because if you tried to use any other chart that represented colors, it's the intent of the Munsell colors is that you can find any color that you can come up with is in the Munsell color book.
Okay.
And of course, we have a narrow band of those colors allowed. And then the other piece of it is, I believe samples are required as part of the application process. So,
Yeah, and I didn't.
so
I
you
didn't
may not
realize
have a
these
deviation
had-
on your hands. You may have a color that's within the. Yeah.
I think there is. My short experience with the Munsell color book
Yeah.
is that this level of a brown is not one of the
Approved.
the charted colors in that maybe in the new. I don't know. So basically, bottom line, we need to just submit the walnut stain that we are going to use, and then ask for that deviation.
or look at the Munsell book, make sure if it's close. or if
You know, it might be a way to, sell your color by looking at
Right.
the Munsell book and just seeing whether it fits within those parameters.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean,
I
it doesn't
certainly
have to be
could be
exact,
wrong.
but
Yeah.
It might help your
So it
case.
may-
My recollection is that the darker it got, it was eliminated.
Right.
The Munsell selections
Yeah, so
kind
then
of.
that would be a deviation.
Yeah, so that's fine. We can handle that.
Yep.
So we'll have to go through and either I'll let them handle that part of
You
it.
just need to make sure you check with Rita about re-advertising.
Yeah. Okay, and then there's one.
All right.
Now, Rita, to be honest with you, can you clarify the buffer comment, please? I'm not sure I follow you.
Needs to be on Highway 98. Yeah, first 25 feet there, that is your buffer for that parcel.
All right, easy enough. Then I'm sure we can incorporate a change to our site plan to depict that buffer as requested. We can make sure that's submitted in advance of our next submittal here for
Can we
DRB.
have time to advertise for a deviation?
Yeah, can we do this in a continuance, or I'm not using the right words?
Yes,
or-
sir, yeah.
Yeah, continuation.
We
Yeah,
can
we
continue
just
your
continue
projects.
it, yeah.
Okay,
As the attorneys We good with that, Cindy?
If you can get a deviation request in by noon next Wednesday,
Can't
we can get it advertised for the July 7th design review board.
Okay, and that's for the variance, if it's needed.
Let me,
It's a deviation.
Wait, we got some more though.
let me address one other issue. Mac, help me with this. We may have need a variance on the pitch again, because it's my understanding that a parapet roof, the reason that something less than a 4 and 12 would be allowed if behind the parapet is you don't see it. In your roof, you're gonna see two entire elevations of the pitch of that roof, which is in essence gonna be pretty flat, you know.
When we refer to the parapet, it's the three-sided parapet.
Parapets
Goes
are
around the
three
whole
sides.
building, and then the back for drainage
If
reasons.
you're not against public housing or a public facility, you don't have to have a parapet on that fourth
Okay.
side. But in order to be less than 4 and 12, it's my understanding you would either have to have a deviation, just like the church,
Right.
or you would have to have
The
a
fo-
parapet that hid the pitch of the roof, so you can't tell what the pitch of the roof is.
Right,
And that would be including down the veterans
right.
Yes.
as well, I guess, on the other side as well.
3 sides.
3 sides. Now, on a previous project here, I guess the ruling was such that as long as we wrap the corner a significant degree, so from the 98 corridor, the view is that we have the wrapped parapet going further back, that we enjoyed that architecture. And that was an approved design. Now, obviously, what was approved on another design is not something that can be held here, but as far as an understanding of the thinking that goes ahead, it seems to me, now one could say maybe on this east side, I've only wrapped it maybe 5 feet, maybe we can go a little bit further, but do we need to take this all the way back? We start to get into whether, rainwater issues and scuppering, when you take a full parapet all the way back on a metal building. So, would there be an allowance to perhaps go back a portion of that building?
So
No,
that is actually.
I've never read the code that way, and that's just my
So
opinion.
they've got
I've read
they've
the
got
code where you don't see
three,
the
1,
pitch,
2,
then
3
you can have
changes
a
in
lower
height.
pitch.
Right.
They have a
But where
parapet
you do
across the
see
south.
pitch,
When
the
you
lowest
turn the
you can be is
corner,
4 and 12.
The lowest you can be.
Otherwise, you don't see it. Now, they do allow to have a wrapped parapet on
this,
parapets.
Mm-hmm.
Use that as
coming
part of
from
your
Panama City.
elevation change, that's allowed by code.
Okay.
So you see that long flat.
As long as I've
block
ever
on that.
dealt with these issues, when
Here's
you see a
393.
pitch,
Right here's Ace Hardware.
it's a
Yeah,
noticeable
okay,
pitch.
yeah.
Glaze glass.
And
boom.
it begins at 4 and 12. And the only time that's not followed is when you don't see the pitch.
And then you allow, the concept of the parapet is so
If
you don't see the
have a
lower.
single slope roof to the rear, then, you don't have other problems
Okay.
that you were referring to.
Well, yeah, I mean, the orientation of the building doesn't allow for such a thing. It'd be ridiculous.
This is coming.
But,
This is flat and they drive into it.
all right.
Yeah,
Bay doors.
and the building sits back on the site right here.
It would be interesting to know your feelings on if the parapet was not continuous throughout the entirety of the length of that roof. In other words, if openings were allowed through like if you look at the east elevation right now, we've created an entrance piece that brings that parapet vertical past the plane of the eave of the low slope metal building roof.
That's our problem.
You could see that there is quite a distance between that front left corner on that bottom elevation and that middle piece. If that opening becomes much smaller, so these parapets find their way very close, but we still have openings in the building to allow for positive drainage, where, you would end up seeing small pieces of that building. Is that something that the board might be amenable to?
As opposed to scuppers and gutters?
As opposed to one giant parapet wall with big scuppers and gutters, and then you've got crickets behind in the whole 9 yards.
I think I'd have to see that.
Yeah,
Can you describe it? I'm not trying to take off of that, but to try to give you a preliminary answer to your question. You don't have a sample, or can you describe what the panels on the majority of the building are made out of? I saw a note that said something to the effect of...
They're stucco finished metal panels.
Yeah.
They were approved again on another project in the corridor, and they have a textured finish to replicate stucco. They're a wider panel. They're not a standard 12-inch or a corrugated. So they bring the stucco material on the full 3 sides of the building. That's the goal.
And is we definitely would want to see a sample of that material as well.
Yeah, you know what, I have one sitting at the office.
Okay.
And I will certainly put it in the car for the next meeting.
Okay.
You got it.
Are we ready to talk about the landscaping?
Yep.
Okay. So the decision to locate the building on the portion of the site where it's located, is there something driving that? Is there a plan for the other half of the site in the future?
Nothing even maybe conceptual at this point. It is owned, I believe, by the same group or entity, individual, but at this point, what they might put there is speculative.
We've done no work on that as of yet from an architectural perspective or planning perspective. But yes, that is part of the ownership.
Okay. And a question for staff. My understanding is the concept is if a parcel of property is developed, then the portion of it that fronts onto the scenic corridor 98 must meet the corridor standards.
This entire lot is on the US 90 corridor.
Yeah.
right.
The point being is just because they don't happen to be touching that portion of the lot, they still have the same obligations.
Yeah, we're looking for that first 25 feet
property.
to be landscaped and provide a sidewalk.
Okay. That's a bit of a challenge, because I hate to require a property owner to go through the expense of landscaping something to that standard without having any idea what will be sitting behind the landscaping in the future. But waiving that requirement is a pretty significant thing to do.
Is that something that can be stipulated in some kind of future development that could transfer if they ever sold or whatever the case may be, that's part of the requirement of the property, but not something that during the development of this back corner of the property would be required to be done on today's dollar?
You'd have to ask for a deviation.
Is this one lot?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Takes care of that.
If it's one
Yeah.
lot,
That answers that question.
So you need your landscape.
You may want to reposition that building now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can understand, if there's an intention to develop something different on the front
Well,
portion of it, and it's VMU, so I mean, it can be a mixed use
right.
development. And you see what I mean? That, I don't know how many $1,000 worth of landscaping that is, but it's not an insignificant amount of money. And to install it, and then in the future go, well, we're going to put a driveway right through the middle of all this stuff.
Move it somewhere. Well, the problem is though, it could be years before anything gets done. So
Yeah.
you just don't
What
have
is
a
the
plan.
current condition of that?
It's just grass.
So it's not heavily wooded.
It's vacant,
Okay.
previously disturbed.
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
it's got a billboard on it. Right?
There's a
What was that,
billboard
Matt?
there.
The front of the building is almost like a billboard, you know?
A portion of the front of the lot has no landscaping.
None, yeah.
You
So
periodically have used cars out there that code enforcement chases off.
Used to be a Cajun restaurant.
Yeah, there's a billboard on the,
Long time, yeah.
I mean, they're using the building as a, big YOLO, and they're expecting for cars to see that sign
Yeah.
from the road.
Well, there's your problem right there, because you got it set back, the sign's there, but you gotta have the landscaping because it's part of the code.
Right.
And you don't know when they're gonna develop that front piece. It could be 20 years from now. So, and if they didn't put the landscaping in there, then we didn't do our job.
Right.
that's my point, is that we're gonna get this batch of landscaping that looks, I mean, it'd be nicer than.
I would like to make a quick point here. It is, and I want to, that whole 99%, I'm almost positive I'm right here, because this is a land use issue. The lots are, in fact, 2 lots at this point. My understanding of the history of the lot, am I wrong on this? My understanding
Yes,
of.
you are.
Okay.
They've created 2 lots, but they have not been legally created.
They've not been legally created. Gotcha. Okay.
So in our mind, they don't exist.
All right.
There's 1 lot, and it's the one ending in 041.
Okay. That's fine. I knew that work had been done to create 2 lots, and then it was decided that we are going to comply on the back half because it was 1 lot. It was 1 lot before or after the code, and it all complied. But I just thought I'd bring it up in terms of David's question about the deviation to just do the front piece right now.
Well, it's my understanding that the second lot, and this was my understanding this afternoon when I spent about 2 hours trying to find a lot split, was that there's no legal lot split here. This is 1 lot. It was 1 lot, 1 parcel when the application was submitted. And it appears to be an effort to circumvent Chapter 13.
And again,
And I don't want to go there. That's why I'm saying this is 1 lot ending in 0.
that's all that matters. That was the question I wanted
That's
to
how we're
ask.
going to proceed on that.
Okay.
So
That's fine.
Jeff, so it looks like you got a few things you need to do and come back.
Yes.
And it looks like we have, the landscaping needs to be presented, the deviation on the color.
Well, a
And
deviation
on
would be a
the-
new, would that be a,
I'm sorry.
how would I mean, this has not been presented as a deviation request,
Right,
so that
so
would be.
if we continue the item, as long as he gets everything to planning by next Wednesday, they can advertise for a deviation.
Wednesday.
Oh, okay, so the new advertisement, same
Yes.
application.
Wednesday by 4.
Okay.
Or confirm with the Monsell chart that you don't need a deviation.
Right.
Correct.
Well, the landscaping issue is,
That's separate.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, well, in that case, I move we continue the YOLO board distribution project until the, what are we in, July meeting?
It should be July 7th.
The July 7th meeting.
Okay, you have a motion, a second?
Second?
Second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. See you July 7th.
July 7th.
Make sure you bring everything,
Yeah.
everything.
Get to it next week.
Okay. All right, next is, where are we?
Our next project, number 5, is a request for deviation for Culver's Restaurant, which will be project number 6. They're requesting approval for a building accent color deviation for the awnings and the trim, and an accent material deviation for cultured stone below the windows, on columns, and around the entry door. Applicant is here to present their case.
All right, come up and state your name again.
Good evening. I am Darrell Burgess again with Emerald Coast Associates. Unfortunately, the architect is out of town in South Florida, but the owner for the project is with us and has the architectural information. And it is basically those 2 deviations they're requesting and it's kind of a signature color for Culver's, the royal blue, if you will, for the awnings. I don't know if you're maybe familiar, there's one in Navarre area.
Panama City opens Monday.
Okay, and then the stone, and I believe we have a sample of that with us. Okay, for the accent underneath.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, Randy Smith, live in Navarre, and I signed the log. That's it. Owner of store.
All right, you want to pass that sample around?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Here's the awning.
Okay.
Here you go. I guess that's the awning.
The awning color?
That's a top cap piece that will go across the top, and the same color for the awning. It will match
Okay.
the fabric.
Same
So this
color?
is the flashing on top,
It is.
Okay.
line there.
Sharp edges there, man. Watch out.
And the stone is the siding.
The stone's the bottom end, the bottom part of the color. And I have a picture, if you want me to pass my phone around from the Navarre store.
I'm sorry.
I have a picture on my phone, if you want to look at an actual store, what it looks like.
That'd be up to the board.
Sure.
Just make sure that you get us a physical copy of the picture so we can add it to the minutes later.
Just email it to Kerry, I guess.
Stone is the bottom.
I'm not quite sure what you need the view.
So what are we deviating here?
So,
Let's see. Deviations. Request a deviation, minimum, building accent color deviation for awnings and trim. All right. So we're asking for a building, the deviation color deviation for the awnings and the trim. Number one. Number two is building accent color deviation color. For the entry door, what's the entry door? Glass?
that's what it looks to be.
On columns around the entry door, what's columns? Okay, that's the, Cultured stone, possibly that's-
Right?
Culture stone below.
There's
Yeah.
two, there's a deviation and then the regular building.
Yeah, there's one.
Deviation doesn't have a full set.
Yeah, the only question I had was on number 6. Wasn't sure exactly which one,
I'm sorry.
what that deviation was requesting for.
Well, no.
Number 6.
I think
Number
you
6
have-
is the project itself.
Oh, okay, never mind. We're good. It was in 5. All that's in 5.
The deviation always has to precede the project.
Okay.
What are the,
We don't,
What are the awnings made out of?
It's a fabric. It's a fabric material, and all the wind ratings will be it's either 125 or 150. It met the Santa Rosa County standard as well as Panama City Beach.
It's like a marine canvas, a marine canvas.
And are they gonna be like that photograph shown? Is
Yes.
shown exactly the same with the,
Same-
with
the
the
same.
edge, the white edge?
The white edge, I'd have to look on there.
Yeah, it's got a white edge, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm planning on the same company doing those awnings as well.
Who's this? Is
That's his. He's showing us a picture of his, pass it
it-
this
is
way.
this shoot?
oh, sorry.
Did it go off?
Your name turn on?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the window.
Oh, that's the
That bottom
window.
one, That's the window plate. It's
I think she needs this right here.
yeah, man, that rendering, is that an alternate or is that just a
oh,
different
that's the
printer? That looks really different than
that's
that.
So that right there, this is darker,
Yeah, this looks more like that.
Print, you know,
which I like that better.
He said that's the frame.
This is too red,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
don't you think?
yeah.
Yeah, I like that better.
so it is gonna be,
I
that's
guess the question
like
is,
aluminum
we
or
don't have the
something.
Munsell.
Right, it's like
It's not gonna
aluminum, so it
wrap
doesn't
around
rust.
it, yeah.
Yeah, do we have the Munsell color book in the room by any chance?
If you want
It
to take a
does have that.
2-minute recess, I can run get it for you.
Yeah.
Would y'all like to see the color book? The reason I ask is I'd love to see how far out of range this awning
You
color
don't need
is.
the next thing I get it, so you
Okay.
over-
Thank you, Mac.
I mean, don't we have a color like that's pretty close on the Munsell anyway?
I just want to see how wide, because we have recently had bright red awnings that we've had
Change.
yeah.
Yeah, our
Did not
colors.
approve.
Our colors are like the corporate colors, sort
Yeah.
of like the McDonald's colors, or the Chick-fil-A red, the Starbucks green.
Yep.
We said no to some of those.
Yeah.
Is that-
We said
Yeah,
no to
some of those have been denied in the
Yeah.
past.
Oh, have they? Okay.
Yeah. And it has a little bit to do with how far out of the range, depending on the general color, blue, red, brown, whatever it is, the ranges of colors may be more extreme in some colors than others. So red is we have a very narrow spectrum of red that's approved.
Right, okay.
I'm just curious to see how far, are you guys just outside the range of blue, or are you way
Okay.
outside the range of blue? You all consider that blue, right? Not
It is
purple
blue.
yet.
It was a, I'm trying to think, here's the actual color swatch.
Sunbrella.
And then,
Yeah. Yeah, here it looks black, but there it
Yeah.
looks blue.
Some guy was in here with some dark colored blue the other day.
Pretty sketchy, huh?
Thank you.
Was that a deviation?
Was that a poplar color?
Yours was a deviation, okay.
Yeah.
It's the same restaurant, same color set as in Panama City Beach.
It's gonna be very similar. The blue, in fact, that is from Panama City Beach. I went over to get that from them. Yeah, corporate, it's a corporate, they specify to us, what colors are allowed on the buildings.
And
so.
the stack rock, is that the small, is in this picture here, or wherever you are, on your phone, it has a smaller stack rock, that's a larger stack rock.
They're different sizes, but it's
A little bit of,
that's the quarter pieces, and they gotta,
okay. So really, what you just showed us on those pictures are pretty much it's gonna be almost identical to that.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. The only thing we had changed is we had picked out the actual wall colors right out of the Munsell chart. So for the actual wall colors, we got as close as we could get with the contrast.
Right.
And we picked the same ones. I was under the impression they were getting ready to open up some more colors. However, they weren't available when we put in, so we just went with your all's colors.
Okay, good.
Okay.
We got a color specialist right here, there's gonna
Okay.
be.
That's the new book.
Yeah.
Was that the new one? I haven't seen that one.
Greens, we're getting blues.
I can try to find it in my email.
Blues. So the question is, where are they marked on these?
No, I don't know.
Is the new book marked?
No, it's not. We're
Oh,
trying
it's
to
not.
find the
Haven't
list
done that
right
yet?
now.
We're getting the keys.
Okay.
Give us those.
Why don't we, 5PB, let's try that, which is 5 purple blue.
Yeah, cause that fits.
Yeah, this is a little more, I think it's got this, okay. Did you say you have an actual swatch on that board of the Sunbrella?
None of the blue, no.
Oh, okay.
I just brought the actual piece in.
Where's his phone at again?
Oh, here.
Yeah,
Yeah. You see it like all around here.
that'll give us a pretty close. Hey, Lordy, can you pass that?
See this? See?
Is that yours?
No.
Picking up that repeat.
Yeah, and it makes it like, just,
That's where the fabrics.
it should tuck it in, It should cover it all, so that it'd be more like that, it's just less. It's like one less thing you have to look at.
Is that,
That's getting,
window
this right
covering?
yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I just printed the 3 pages out of the change pages and Max getting them off the printer, so you'll
Okay,
know
great.
what was changed.
Thank you.
Is the awning provided, or the window coverings provided by the franchisor?
I mean, just in terms of the intent.
Right, well,
so if we know where the
the
box
color
They
is-
tell you where to
We
buy
can
it
give them a
from.
choice.
Just-
Well, no, they give me a
then we got
choice.
problem. If it's down in here
So-
somewhere,
We're in, yeah.
Let me see.
Guys, I don't want
I'm
to.
just, Lourdes, you certainly can look, I'm just looking, these look a
Sorry.
little greener.
I don't want to stifle
Those
discussion,
look-
David, but we
It's more close.
I'm sorry?
we just need to make sure that we're not talking at the same time and make sure the applicant knows
Okay.
what's going on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's fine to have these discussions, I just don't wanna.
Okay.
We're just looking at the colors,
No,
trying
that's
to
fine.
find one.
Yes,
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Out of curiosity at this
That's
point,
probably the range, closer than that.
Yeah.
there appears to be a frame around that
Line.
Yeah.
awning.
Yes, sir.
It makes.
Is there a way to construct that
Color.
awning without
Color
that
if it colors.
frame being visible
See here, they
and
don't have-
obviously calling attention to itself since it's white?
Right, I can definitely check on that. I would think that would be an easy fix, I'm not sure. I know there's a ridge in there, so when they bring it, it's a prefabbed, I believe it's aluminum. There's a ridge in there, so what they do is they stretch that fabric across, and then it's seamed in. There's like a little strip that goes in there, and it sits back in there. That way, if it gets ripped or a storm or something were to take it off, you could replace that. But I can definitely check with them and see if there's a way to wrap it around the edges and seam it underneath.
7.5 PB, yeah.
I would.
I wouldn't think that would be a big deal, but
Yeah.
It just kind of stands out a little bit, it's a little bit
It's
too
more
too
purple
much.
than blue.
Yeah.
okay.
It's just that the white window frame
Well,
and
we'll see, we'll see what we
white
follow
little
on this.
Yeah.
lines around that.
Yes.
Is that close?
Is the point of the-
Well,
I'm
yeah,
not an
we just need to
architect.
maybe
Right.
When I use this
7.5
word, it's way
PB, but
above
once,
the pay grade.
once she
It's kind
comes
of
out
try.
three
Okay.
pages, we can find out what's the range.
See what it is. All right, we're checking it.
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
Blue, 132.
okay, so 5 PB, 10 PB. So we actually didn't have this page, so let's see what the next page look like.
Yeah, there's another section of those on the single page.
Ah, that's the, these are the, oh, that'd be accent colors. Accent colors are broader. Okay.
Yeah.
So 7.5 BG, where's PB, YR? Well, must be another page. Here we go, 7.5 PB hue. Okay, so value is 7. This is value, so 7 to 9, it's way up high. So this is a pretty, and then it goes, chroma is 75 PB. Where is that? 2, so it's only that stack. So, okay. This is the area that's approved, and we think the color's over here. So it's a significant deviation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's accent.
Accent. I have a question.
Sure.
If it was not blue, the awnings were not blue, what color would you make them?
I would have to get with corporate.
Okay.
Maybe give them some ideas of color, something that, I guess, you're looking for something dark, or this blue is your
Right. Yeah.
signature color.
Right. That's what we're doing. It's the same as it's like I said. The kind of for me, it's like the Chick-fil-A. When you go by, you got that red that stands out. It's sort of our blue. It's just
Yeah, but the Chick-fil-A, they made some pretty significant changes to their building. Signage. I'm trying to think, this Chick-fil-A doesn't have any awnings on it.
No.
And the only red, I believe, is in the lettering and the bird itself.
Exactly.
This really. The awnings have a big part of their logo. The awnings support the logo a lot,
Right.
you know?
Well, I guess that's
That's kind of
the question. Are we willing to approve a pretty significant color deviation for?
Do you
What
have your?
happened with the red we didn't approve because there were red awnings and what ended up being approved?
A
Sand.
sort of dark khaki sand color. Yeah.
Contrast to the building color.
Yeah.
And they picked that one out after we
Mm-hmm.
gave them a little better. Well, we thought maybe we could pick that out themselves. Off the chart.
Madam Attorney or staff, do we, if we were to continue the project to the next meeting and request that the applicant get with corporate and submit an alternate color that's within the approved range of colors, and then we make a final decision, is that an acceptable way to proceed?
That would be in your discretion as a board.
So-
Would that cause you problems?
Well, yeah, so we're on a kind of timeline for construction, so I guess the question would be is, what would be approved if, I mean, do you have a color as close as I can, and I can try to go to corporate and say, hey, this is what they approved?
Well, I mean, if reasonably the project is not likely to proceed because the awning color doesn't get approved, I think that's a concern, but I don't know in a month, if you haven't started the project, you're gonna be ready to put the awnings on the building next month.
I have no problem
Yeah.
waiting, as long, the awnings are like one of the last things that goes on.
Yeah, that's my point.
I just don't want to stop the progress, we're hoping to start development next month.
Yeah.
You can do that without.
See, we can take up, if the well, there's another question. If the application for a deviation is denied or continued,
Right.
if it's continued, then we can still take up the application for the development order itself, and that potentially could be
Yes.
approved, and that just means that we have to make a decision at the next meeting.
Yes, that would be acceptable.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I do need to disclose, this project is on the planning commission next Thursday.
But I assume if you guys just go,
If all we're hung up on is the color of the awnings, I mean, they could come back and with a request for deviation next month, and we could proceed with the development design and site plan approval tonight, which
And
is
a
the
color
next project.
deviation, does that have to go to planning board?
No.
I see.
no, I
Yeah.
think their deviation also included this material. So if you guys
We
wanted
can
to,
consider that.
yes,
Yeah.
you can consider that and just leave the awnings out and continue that.
so I want to make sure I understand this right. So, if I were to get an awning color that's inside that color spectrum, then I wouldn't even need a deviation, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. That's what we're-
And if you want the blue, you can come back again, but we need to see an option.
Yeah.
So if I get the
So
stone
we can discuss
approved, the awning, now how about the top cap? Metal,
Top
that'd
cap.
fall under the same thing, correct?
Yeah.
Oh,
So I guess an option I would have is to paint within the color spectrum, go down to Sherman-Williams and just paint that a color
And-
that's inside yours, and then I don't need a deviation.
I would, if I were you, I wouldn't even, the flashing or the color, I mean, I would make it more natural to go with the building, and then you have one less thing you have to worry about.
Right,
Because it's so minimal.
right,
I mean, that's what I would do, but.
right.
So we can, just to make sure we procedurally move forward, we could approve the deviation for the, I don't know if it's, what is it referred to as, cast stone?
Stone.
Cultured stone?
The building accent material.
Cultured stone?
Cultured stone, there you go, okay. We could approve the deviation for cultured stone and continue the deviation request for the,
Awning color
the awnings.
deviation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Is everybody, all my fellow members here, comfortable with that? Are y'all comfortable if I were to make a motion to that effect?
Yes.
Okay. I move that we approve the building accent material deviation for cultured stone, and further, that we continue the deviation request for the color, the building accent color deviation for awnings and trim to the July 7th DRB meeting.
okay, we have a motion, have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
And now we'll have the project itself.
Yeah, now for the project, you can stay right up there.
Our next project is item number 6 on our agenda. This is the development design and site plan approval for Culver's Restaurant. It's subject to the approval of any deviations just made, and conditioned upon a deviation being necessary, if necessary, we find that this project meets the minimum requirements of the scenic corridor regulations.
All right. Y'all have any questions? Landscaping.
Man, y'all ought to open a climbing school in your retention pond.
It's kind of large.
13 feet deep. Is that, Mac, that's a question I guess I might ask, is, I guess the elevation of this area is sufficient to allow a pond that deep to actually work without filling up with groundwater? Is that within the scope of what we look at? If it's not, I should just be quiet.
Planning.
Actually, that was reviewed at Technical Review Committee.
Okay.
Providing it's properly fenced for safety. They determined that the groundwater table was low enough to satisfy this particular design, or
Okay.
accommodate this particular design.
This is an all-day road.
And there's no landscaping required on the north side of the, it's residential preservation use shown north of it.
Now, in this particular case, the VCC has approved a change in landscaping requirements. We eliminated the first 85 feet being landscaped in Chapter 13, and now landscaping is pointed to Chapter 5, and it's required for the entire perimeter of the site. This application actually came in prior to the board's action on that, and it's technically not subject to that new regulation.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys might remember those were some of the changes we
Yeah.
made in the.
Okay.
But any application that was received prior to the changes
Yeah, okay.
becoming effective wouldn't apply.
Okay, so no landscaping required on the north side of the site.
Probably wouldn't be out of the scope of authority of this board to recommend that there be some.
Okay.
Since this board did recommend changing the code to accommodate landscaping on all four sides.
Both sides, okay. We can recommend but not require.
I believe so on this particular
may.
project.
May influence our, well, I'm not allowed to say that, am I? Okay, I'll go there.
That was a joke.
Well, it looks like they have around the perimeter of it anyway, it looks like they have what, Kathy? Yopon Hollies all the way around. So they did put a.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at a
Fencing
plan
right
that doesn't have
there.
that in there. Okay, well, great, all right.
So they do have it in there.
Landscape's
Yeah.
all four sides.
Yep, okay,
Which is-
fantastic.
which
I'm
is
sorry.
great. Yeah, that looks good.
What's confusing is the overlay to existing.
I know where all those trees are, that's
Yeah.
what this, but yeah, it's in there, so
I'm
they
sorry,
do
I
have that.
apologize. I thought I opened the,
And they've got the number of trees, let's see, live oaks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yep, that's equal to the distance.
sorry, I did not open that drawing.
And
Okay, I see it. Great.
they got the understood, let's see, 1, 2, 3.
We're not doing any sign.
Nope, not yet. No, it looks like it's all there.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
great.
Perfect.
Lighting levels are down at the edges.
They got all the lighting they need and then some, don't they?
Well, it's all pretty low at the edges of the site. It's a little bright in the parking lot, but. Okay, well, I move the approval of the Culver's Restaurant as submitted.
I second.
Except for the blue awning color, right?
That was the
Okay.
last
Oh,
motion.
that was that. This is the main development order?
Right.
Okay.
This
So I
is-
guess
okay,
the
this is
blue
the
awnings
main.
aren't part of this.
Yeah, this,
Previous.
the motion can be subject to the previous deviations and the continuance of one
Oh,
deviation.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so the way this is put together assumes that we would have either approved or denied the deviations. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. In that case, I guess I move I withdraw my
Motion.
previous motion. Okay. I move the approval of the Culver's Restaurant Major Development Order subject to the
Approval of-
actions of the prior item.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, last but not least.
And now to number 7. This is a master signage plan amendment for the crossings at Inlet Beach. This development has subsequently added Phase 2, and they wish to relocate a directional sign onto the Phase 2 site. It was approved in the Phase 1 site. And I believe we have the applicant here to...
We have the applicant. State your name, please.
Sandy Buffoon with Boardwalk Designs.
All right, Miss Sandy.
Hey.
What
Yes,
is it
as-
you want to do?
Well, as he just mentioned, it was, the directional sign was originally in the original master sign plan. He subsequently has developed Phase 2, and he wants that directional closer to the entrance, closer to that road there at Walton and, yeah. So he just wants it closer. So it's going to be moved to the other parcel versus the original parcel, from Phase 1 to Phase 2.
And is this similar to the sign that's already there?
Oh, well, he has no ground signs.
There's none yet, right?
On parcel 1 or parcel 2.
Okay.
That was part of the original, but he never developed that. He's not going to do that.
Did we
So
ever-
this though is part of the architecture. It matches the architecture of the building, yes. And it was the same design as was approved by the original master
Yeah, I
sign plan,
remember
yes.
now. Yeah. Okay.
I move, well, unless we need to have discussion, or maybe for purpose of discussion, I move the approval of the
Simple.
relocated
Directional.
crossings at Inlet Beach I move the approval of the crossings at Inlet Beach master plan signage plan amendment as presented.
I second.
We got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Center looks good.
Move to adjourn?
My motion, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. 6:29. Something like that, anyway. All right, 6:30. Perfect. Oh, no, y'all do good. My team is great.
Yes, sir.
I think Gerald's gone, but everybody's still around. Everybody else is out of town. It's June and July. Summertime is tough. All right, I'm off to another meeting, so.
Just keep our mosquitoes away. How are Zekas doing?
Zika is, I'm going next week for a conference down in Sarasota, and we're going to learn a little bit more about what's going on down there. Hi, Cindy. Night, Lourdes. Thank you.
It's just getting crazy. Heard a news bulletin the other day, General Mills, flower picker.
Okay, and I'm leaving all that
Recalling, I forgot.
stuff over here. Carrie, is that okay? Or you want me to bring you the?
Oh, yeah, you can bring it over here. I can bring it.
Over 30 cases of E. coli traced back to that flower.
To the flower?
That's when my wife said, the first thing she said was,